Leave it to Jaye Williams. He has other plans. He rushes me to start this podcast. I sit down. I'm ready to go. He makes me wait another 15 minutes.
How's it going? I'm doing fantastic. Got a Starbucks. Putting my vape together. I'm ready to do some after schmo. Gosh darn it.
You just responded to me like we're 3 minutes into the future, and I just introduced you after the theme song.
All right, I'll see you guys later. See you on Twitter.
All right, take it easy. Have a good one, guys. I was spending a lot of time today thinking of new segments for the show, and you actually, right before we hit record, you came up with a great one that we're going to do later. But earlier today, I was thinking of stuff that we could do, and every idea that I came up with, I could just hear Mark and Christian getting mad at the idea. One of them I came up with earlier was find your favorite typo in the Schmodown Patreon, and I figured, yeah, we're going to do that, and then somebody's going to get mad. Have you ever done that? Have you ever had an idea to bring to After Schmo and then thought, there's no way that Christian or Mark does not get mad at this?
Not necessarily for After Schmo. I don't really come up with ideas that often for After Schmo. Just kind of let it happen. But yeah, sometimes, I don't know, I'm constantly running through things in my mind, and I'm just like, nah, not going to do that. Not going to do that. I'm always thinking, man.
I had another idea. I didn't come up with any kind of name for it, but I figured we could spend a little time making sure that Christian and Mark don't age, like don't do anything to get out of touch. So maybe like a history lesson in similar to what you used to do for the Schmoes No Show. We could do a history lesson on like Childish Gambino and bring those guys up to date on who Donald Glover is. But maybe that's a very it could be anything. I'm just worried about them. They're becoming out of touch. So much, in fact, that the words fire and trash are new to them.
I want to do like the top 5 things that Christian and Mark. Maybe not. You know what? I think we're giving Mark a hard time. I feel like Mark is more in touch than Christian is. I don't mean that in a negative way. The guy's got a kid. I feel like when you have kids and just these overwhelming things that sort of draw your focus more narrowly. What's that word? More narrow. What? How do you say that? Narrowly? Narrow. I don't know. I've got CTE. I'm getting dumber.
It's narrow.
Okay. More narrow. I feel like you just time passes you by, and you just lose touch with things. Like you don't know who Lil Pump is or who Lil Uzi Vert is.
Ellis has a dog, so at least Christian has interaction with an actual child, someone of a younger generation. Ellis, that isn't even a dog. I'm judging it purely off of Instagram. I know Molly acts like a cat. She acts like she doesn't give a fuck about Danny or Ellis in any way, shape, or form.
I treat dogs like I treat children, just like normal adults. So when they approach me, I just talk to them like normal. Like if they're being strange, I will call them out for being strange. Why are you being weird? Why are you being a weird dog? I don't like these interactions with dogs where they're also like babies, like, oh my God, how are you? It's like that dog doesn't want you to do that.
You realize we spend like a ton of time together. I've seen you interact with plenty of dogs. You had no reason to tell me that like it was new information.
Have you ever seen me interact with a child before?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm usually just upset that they're doing certain things that they're doing. Don't do that. Don't act like that.
We have been out in public, and some people have thought I'm your son, though.
I don't think that's true. In fact, the other night I was eating pasta at a restaurant, and a guy carded me when I got wine, and he said, you look great for your age. I said, thanks. I appreciate that.
You're 30.
I know, but it's nice to hear. Feels good.
Welcome to After Wanger, the official after show for the Wanger Show. My name is Ryan Snelling.
And my name is Francisco Morningstar. Hit it with the intro. Oh, did we already do that? Okay.
My girlfriend said, "What's an after Wanger?" And I said, "It's flaccid."
Silly Ryan, you don't have a girlfriend.
Guys, we're changing it up a little bit, only because Mark and Christian have forced our hand, And I haven't even gotten to Jaye Williams' stream of consciousness notes yet, but I'm sure that they're pretty empty based on what I know of him and how he operates.
Well, they legitimately just don't exist. I feel like I need to address this. We don't have to address much on after whatever this is, and I'm sure people miss the segments. Well, here's how I feel. Listen, we all miss the live show. It's clear. Some people just think Collider is ending tomorrow. It's going up in flames. I don't really understand that, but to sympathize with you, I'm not going to be bringing back the stream of consciousness notes until the live show comes back. It helps me out, and it helps you out because we're both sad together.
I'm glad that you had some kind of justification, because at first you made it sound like you were putting your foot down, like it was sort of a protest, and I was going to say that that's the complete opposite attitude that we want to have. We want to make sure that we're supporting everything that they're doing, no matter if it involves the live show or not. But I'm glad you clarified there. Let's talk about that for a minute. Last week we talked about the fans and some of the hypocritical stuff that we've seen and how disappointed we are with a lot of their attitudes. Not the entire community. We brought all of that up last week and broke it down. And you texted me earlier about it, and I agree with you. Christian and Ellis brought it up very briefly. And they brought it up when they were promoting After Schmo. So essentially, Christian and Mark didn't have any interest in bringing that up and addressing it in any way. And I thought a lot about that, and I was wondering why. And I think they're just at a place in their careers, they just don't care. And I think that says a lot, and it said enough for me to feel comfortable just not addressing it anymore either. And I know you were exhausted from the topic already because, again, like you said, there are still people who are spitting that kind of language, but we've addressed it. They didn't even ever need to address it because they gave us the reasons why a few weeks back, and I just don't want to do that anymore. And it goes back to what I ultimately said last week. You're either going to be on board or not. And like you said off air, I'm exhausted, and I think we're both over it. Sigh of relief, right?
Yeah, more like cough of relief. Yeah, listen, we've addressed it multiple times now, and I sort of took them quickly addressing it by pretty much saying, without actually saying it, that, you know what, those guys sort of deal with all that discussion. We've been through all of this. We've done this show long enough where we know how people react and don't react, and it's all good. We're just going to focus on doing the show and entertaining the people that do enjoy it, and that's cool. I can respect that. And obviously, I don't know that like with 100% certainty if that's exactly how they think, but we've addressed this so many times, like the fan reaction and people that don't like it and this and that, and it would just become redundant at this point. So we can't. I'm not ignorant to the fact, I'm not ignorant to the fact that not everybody that watches Schmo's content and Collider content listens to the show. I'm very, very aware of that, and there's going to be people out there that haven't heard our take. So I can't just sit around and police all of these things that people are saying. Like, this whole thing came up again about Collider going down the tubes and they're clearly in trouble. And I just didn't have the energy, man. I didn't have the energy to be like, well, we talked about this. Like, it's going to happen. It's never not going to happen. So the best thing I can do is to tell all of you guys who are also sick of hearing it and sick of hearing this sort of talk to let's just move on.
Right.
Let's just move on and watch the show that's on the air.
We had our take last week, and Mark and Christian aren't going to spend any time on it. So therefore, we aren't either, and we're totally happy with that. So
it was so, like, I'll tell you exactly the point where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. Somebody brought up again TV talk and behind the scenes no longer being on the air, and I was like, this was months ago, guys. Let's move on. Okay.
Right.
And in fact, which sort of, I don't know if it gets us into things, but TV Talk isn't back, but they are recapping TV shows. And this isn't a shot at anybody, but guess what? It's still not there. Like, it's not what the masses want to see. So
I'm not on board. I'm not on board with that.
Well, let's talk about it. So they're recapping Versace right now. And I get it that that's sort of isolating to a specific group of people who are also watching the show. But, you know, I'm not seeing people who were obsessed with TV Talk sharing the videos. I'm not seeing this wide group of people like, hey, guys, if we really get on board with these videos because we miss TV Talk so much, maybe it'll come back. Where are you guys?
Right. I certainly haven't seen a movement. I haven't seen much of a response from the audience. But then again, I have slightly been disconnected from Schmoville for reasons that we stated in the previous conversation. But I'm also not watching Versace right now. Like, I saw the premiere, but I haven't been following along with Collider. But speaking particularly to, I'm just looking at the view count, and I'm looking at about how long it takes for them to produce this show. They equal, you know, they're between 5 and 10 minutes. These videos, and the view count, I think, is certainly worth it. If 20,000 views was their goal for that superhero show, the production or the superhero list, the production behind the superhero list is far more complicated when it comes to sitting all those people down individually, and then the editing and the music and the graphics and all of that. If they only wanted 20,000, then I don't know why. And again, we're just talking. I don't know if they're actively discussing what's going on with this TV programming right now, but as far as I can tell, and knowing what I know about all of their other content, just comparing all of this, it feels like to me that these videos are doing just fine.
Yes.
5 to 10 minutes, 2 people talk about the episode, put it up, 20,000 views. There you go.
Let me come back around on what I said, and I apologize. I don't mean to be disparaging to what the performance actually is. I didn't necessarily mean it like that. It was more speaking towards the fan base in terms of, I don't know if people realize or not that they are doing things that they were doing on TV Talk, and I'm not hearing people celebrate it, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, TV Talk might not exist as you knew it in terms of the show, the weekly show, but people that were involved in TV Talk are talking about TV on Collider. But you know what I'm saying? The conversation doesn't seem to be about that specifically.
So how are you able to gauge that? Like, why do you feel that way? Because because I know you, I know that you're probably as disconnected, if not more disconnected, from like the Schmoville group. And I mean, have you been watching those videos and looking at the comment section or anything like that? Like, what makes you feel down about these videos in particular? And I'm just asking out of curiosity, not out of judgment.
Well, for one, I've got my ear to the ground.
Very good.
We all know that.
Yeah.
That should be all you need to know. But other than that, you know, it's just sort of gauging the energy surrounding it. I still dip into Schmoville from time to time. I mean, I follow, I don't necessarily follow a bunch of people in that space, but I am connected with a bunch of people in that space. And it just doesn't seem like that's the conversation that's necessarily bled over. For instance, when TV Talk was canceled, the conversation bled over into our zeitgeist. We knew about it because people were freaking the fuck out. That's what I'm saying. Is it's just like, shouldn't there be some sort of crossover there between what people are saying about, you know, the rest of the content that's actually being put out? Like, shouldn't we get, I don't know, if it were a show that you loved, I mean, listen, I miss comic book shopping, and it will be back in some shape or form. And I've actually seen people say, "Where's comic book shopping?" I've seen this bleed over. It's bubbled up. The conversation has bubbled up to the top.
I saw Fernandez on Instagram today doing another show for Complex, and I just wanted to scream at him, "Where's comic book shopping?"
Well, first of all, sneaker shopping it's one of the flagship shows of all of Complex. Like, I don't even know. I could be speaking out of turn, but without sneaker shopping, we might not even have some of the stuff we have on Collider, to be fair.
You've got your ear to the ground.
That's right.
You know what Christian was saying a lot on the Harloff and Ellis that really was bugging me? This might be the first time that I've ever noticed it. 100%.
100%.
Every time he said it, I just thought about you. It's like, damn it. Did he get that from Jay?
He needs to go on thesaurus.com. That's where I'm going to figure out my new lingo.
Do we have any particular jargon that we use on the show that isn't known elsewhere? Like, I was thinking a lot about...
Hashtag transparency.
Huh?
Hashtag transparency?
No, I'm talking like specifically to our region or specifically to our age. I'm not talking about inside jokes on Sight and Sound.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Remember, for a long time, everyone around here was saying I got weak. Let me know in the comment section. Have you ever heard the phrase "I'm weak" or "I just got so weak" when it comes to laughing at something? It means you're laughing really hard. Oh my God, I'm weak.
I feel like native to the South. My mom, when people are ignorant, she says ignorant, and she also says people are ornery. But I don't think that's how you actually pronounce that word. Isn't it like hernery or something like that?
No, it's definitely ornery. It's spelled ornery, but it's ornery.
Is that like how some people say crown instead of crayon? Are we just all doing it wrong?
I heard one of the Wangers, I think it was Beardo, say crown, and I thought he was saying crayon, which is funny because crayon, that's how I say it. I say crayon, and it's my most hated word because for whatever reason there are people that exist around here that call it crowns, and it's just like, no, that's just clearly not what that word is. And
people are going to be in the comments and be like, what? People call it crowns? Yes, in Kentucky, they call it crowns.
Get your crowns. So stupid. Anyway, yeah.
There are people in Kentucky that will refer to any carbonated beverage as a Coke. Just give me the Coke.
What about pop?
Do
people call it pop elsewhere?
Some people will say, I'll just take a Coke. It's like, that could mean anything to some people. Well, I really meant Mountain Dew.
I've never come across that. Like, I do get irritated when I order Coke and then they're like, is Pepsi okay? Of course.
Yes. No, RC. Bring me a Mr. Pibb.
Give me a big K soda. That's a Kroger brand for anybody that doesn't have a Kroger. What's that other grocery store? That really popular one? Publix?
Okay.
How did we get here? Oh, yeah, because Christian likes when we say trash and fire. I don't remember what we were talking about, but let's move on. There was a couple of carpools this week, and one of them I didn't watch because I heard it was mostly about the Schmodown. And, okay, that was another thing that I knew would irritate Christian. Because when I go to... I could hear him yelling at me. When I go to carpool, I want to hear him talk about the WWE and this and that. So, like, right now, I'm not listening or watching carpool as much because I know it's a lot of Schmodown talk, and that's fine. It
makes sense, right? Obviously,
yeah,
because of Patreon, this and that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I'm not, like, I know what the Patreon is.
Yeah, Christian, it's okay. He's not writing it off. Just relax.
I'll be back. But
it's my new thing to tell Christian to relax on every show.
I don't think Christian has a sense of humor about himself. Like, has he ever laughed at himself at all, really? Or like, has he ever made a joke about himself?
Yeah, he jokes about the chicken on the highway thing quite a bit.
That's different. That has nothing. I don't know. That's a really light example. Like, I'm talking about something that I just don't think he has the best sense of humor about himself. That's all. I
don't know. Come on. I think he's fine. I think sometimes he just gets more frustrated about certain things that he might not have as much context of, and I think that's fair. Like sometimes, like one day I remember, I think it was you. He was like, "Snelling, what are you talking about?" in the comments, and you were like referring to somebody else. He was like, "Oh, okay, I'm good now."
Oh, right. In carpool, I was talking to somebody, and he got on me for not tagging him, but I didn't know that you could tag in the comments. Like I did.
Well, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It's weird.
After he called me out, yes, I was talking to somebody. After he called me out, then I added the person I was talking to, but it didn't usually it becomes a hyperlink so that person gets a notification, but it was just plain text. So I guess if that person reads it and sees his name, then he sees it, but he didn't specifically know I was talking to him. So
I have a side thing real quick. Something that was not in our show notes, our rundown. What'd you say? Bless you.
To be fair, every bit of this is a side thing, but go ahead.
So 2 things real quick. I want to give a big congratulations to the Schmodown Rundown for winning an award. Let me ask you this. Do you kind of wish we could win an award? Were you kind of like, that should have been me?
That's why I'm starting after Schmodown here in March to celebrate my 2 years on SK Plus without an award. I'm going to start my own Schmodown podcast.
If Roka would have been given the awards, he would have given it to us.
You think so?
But no, on another note, sometimes we talk about SK Plus stuff because it's in the Schmolider universe, and we're going to talk about Wangers here in a second. But I do want to address one thing that Christian brought up on Carpool, and it is sort of to the rundown. Our brothers covering the Schmodown over there, Brad and Frank.
I don't know who Brad is, but we can call him our brother anyway.
Does it surprise you? Brad, apparently, I think he's younger than both of us, but he sounds significantly older. Anyways.
And he looks older, yeah.
Does it surprise you that Christian had to sort of call them out in Carpool for not listening to Carpool to get certain scoops on the show? Like, I feel like they should 100% be listening to Carpool for their show.
I've always just assumed that he told them a bunch of...
Christian just telling people things. He wants you to pay attention to his content.
But even before Carpools, the rundown existed for forever, and I just assumed they had a relationship where he told them things and gave them scoops. I don't know if he sets up their guest appearances per se, but I'm sure Christian will... At least at one time, maybe everyone had their first interview on Rundown, right? So Finstock and Jeff Snyder. I'm sure he went to them and was like, hey, do this interview and say this or tell them this or blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm sure there was something like that happened. Yeah. I just assumed that since the birth of the Schmodown Rundown that he's had that relationship where he's just told them things. So I'm more surprised that he's requiring them to watch Carpool for those particular takes. But
I think now it's a different sort of landscape. It's a fascinating landscape considering how many people are actually involved with the quote-unquote Schmodown press, that he's sort of passing the love around. And that, I mean, this is all speculative, but I mean, we know that he does these sort of meetings with Take 3. I'm sure he talks to all the belt. I'm sure he talks to Schmodown Rundown. I mean, sort of passing the ball to a bunch of different people. My final question. You think Frank Janish is listening to the show right now?
No.
All right, let's talk about Mark for a second. Another side note outside of...
Hold on, what is this about exactly? Are we going to get into Harloff and Ellis real quick before the Wanger show?
We can, yeah, but let me just address the fact that Mark was on Doug Loves Movies, which is exciting and fun. I think it's really cool. We've talked often off air about the fact that Doug Benson... He has this show, Doug Loves Movies, but it seems like he operates outside of this whole movie discussion landscape. So I do like it especially when I hear that Mark is on the show. Do you think Mark got high with Doug on the show?
Without a doubt.
We should listen to it. I need to listen to it. I'm not throwing shade at Doug Benson. I don't listen to a lot of the stuff that Doug Benson does. Although I have watched before getting Doug with high because I think it's hilarious.
I have literally zero time to add any other podcast to my schedule. So
I get it 100%. You want to talk about Harloff and Ellis?
I do. I have virtually no notes other than, of course, they switched up their placement, their setting.
Yeah. Where the hell are they?
That is directly to the left of the Collider Movie Talk stage. So it's sort of between the movie talk stage and where the production crew sits.
Okay, I need to make a statement here. I literally have no idea if the Schmoes Know set on the Collider in the Collider Studios, does it still exist? Because we used to get a shot of it all the time on Movie Talk because that's where Wendy or Movo would sit, but that personality, whoever is handling that role, has been sitting at the main table on Movie Talk. I legitimately don't know if it exists. And the only reason I'm throwing this out is because they may or may not be moving. I have no idea. We're not privy to that information fully. I don't know if the set exists. Is that a fair statement to make? For a second, I literally thought, oh, well, maybe that's just the other side of Collider Studios that used to be the Schmoes Know set. But then I realized that I had nothing to base that information off of. It was just a wild speculation.
You know how we like to play that game? What's the obscure thing that we're going to get corrected on that makes no difference at all?
It's this.
It's going to be this. It actually wasn't to the left of the movie talk stage. It was to the right. Okay.
I feel like the comment is going to be, of course it exists. Why would it not?
You know,
unless they're actually moving somewhere. I don't know.
Everything, that theory you just brought up, you know what completely derails it?
What's that?
That's where Christian and Mark sit on the Schmodown, Jay.
So where'd those chairs come from?
I don't know. Is this where we are on After Schmo? Where did they get the chairs to sit down? Do you have anything in particular on this show itself? I wish Christian was able to talk a little bit more about the Black Panther premiere. That's, again, I don't want to contradict myself. I don't want to act like I don't support the Harloff and Ellis show. But I feel like if RB3 was there and they were producing the live show, we would have gotten a little bit more out of that premiere talk. And I know he couldn't really say anything about the movie because of the embargo, but I think that would have been a better conversation on the live show.
I mean, I legitimately enjoyed the show. There's just not a whole lot for us specifically to cover, especially, I think a lot of it, and I embrace this. I love the fact that they're talking about things sort of outside of what we would normally get on this space for the most part. Talking about the XFL, talking about pro wrestling a little bit, talking about Christian's daughter watching pro wrestling, getting all their football discussion leading up to the Super Bowl. All that's great, and that's really cool. And I guess it is I guess I've fully been expecting them to talk about some of the things that we've been talking about here in the past couple of weeks, like the fan reaction to all this stuff. And the fact that they're just not addressing it is a huge breath of fresh air. I love it. They're just doing the show that they want to do. And I really, really appreciate that. And it wasn't super like Schmodown Patreon heavy either.
No.
I think Christian's very aware of that. He's just like, if you know about this, you know about it. I don't need to continuously discuss it.
I don't know if this is true, but I'm going to say it because I want to make Ellis sound good. I could totally see Ellis taking the back seat and letting RB3 go into that premiere. I don't know if that's exactly how it happened, but I like to imagine it because that is 100% something that he would do. So I wanted to make sure that he was recognized for that. Even if it didn't actually happen that way, just a reminder, that's something Ellis would do if he had the chance. So there's that.
Absolutely.
What a nice guy.
Yeah, I think so for sure, especially because most of the crew got to see it the next day. And he didn't get to do it on that day because he was doing Doug Loves Movies. So he's going to get to see it next week. I think Ellis is fascinating to sort of watch in these Harloff and Ellis episodes because as we've talked about already, we've sort of joked, Christian, he's got this kid. He's super focused on raising a child and being a dad.
Please.
And Ellis is the one that's plugged in, man. He's the one that's plugged in. So to sort of see his reaction to sort of not necessarily. Obviously, he knows that one of his best friends is busy. He's got stuff going on, but it sort of makes the conversation interesting, like to sort of see his reaction to like, you're not going to watch the Super Bowl, or you haven't been following football as much. I think that's very fascinating to sort of see their dynamic in that regard. And he's sort of playing this role of like observing Christian from afar. He's just like, really? You're not doing these things? It is interesting to watch.
He was sort of playing observer on this episode. I feel like we didn't really get a whole lot out of Mark. It was just a lot of Mark interviewing Christian, and that was about it. And then Christian did that 20-minute thing on, they were talking about wrestling and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know.
I spent a lot of the episode, for whatever reason, this might sound weird and creepy, but paying attention to Ellis's reactions to things. And he just was sort of like taking it in. I do think there were times and moments, and I pick up on this because I get this way with you, where sometimes where he was getting a little bit annoyed with certain isms from Harloff sometimes, which I think is fine. They work together a lot. You and I work together a lot. I'm sure we get annoyed with little ticks and this and that we do. But I think there is something to be said of the dynamic too. The fact that Mark is constantly on camera throughout the entire week, where Christian is not as much. It seems like he's more antsy to get on the mic and have his take and have his say, and he just has all this stuff that he wants to get out. Do you think there's something to be said with that?
I don't know. I'm still stuck on the fact that I have isms.
I also think right now is just an interesting time with Schmoes and with Collider, because they're in this sort of in-between thing. I've picked up on a little bit from Christian that there's stuff going on that they just can't quite talk about yet. So they're in the process of doing things behind the scenes that we're not privy to,
right,
but also making the ship float, making it move forward at the same time.
I think that's the thing that I was more surprised. Like, we talked about what they are and aren't addressing on this show. Last week, another thing that we brought up, aside from the fan backlash, if you will, was we briefly talked about how much they're entitled, how much they're able to reveal to fans at a particular time when it comes to changes made at the company. And even with that idea aside, we are getting further and further away from the time that they announced that some things were about to happen. Like, okay, do you believe that the Schmodown Patreon is part of that? Like, is the thing that we've been waiting for the Schmodown Patreon? That can't be right? There's got to be more to it. It's got to be bigger than that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I think I commented towards somebody the other day, before I just had enough with sort of these conversations. Somebody was bringing up, like, are these the changes? Are we seeing the changes that we were sort of promised and teased about and this and that? And I made the comment to them. I just said, listen, from what we know, from what we've been privileged to have heard, you haven't seen shit yet. And you will know the changes because they will be very, very noticeable. I don't think anything at Collider has changed. I don't think anything at Schmoes has changed enough, besides the fact that the live show has sort of taken a back seat. I don't think we've seen anything yet. I think everything has been very subtle, very, very under the radar, and it has made it a little bit difficult to talk about, or to at least operate on the day-to-day. Listen, I'm fine with it. We're still getting the content. We're still getting shows and this and that, and we're not entitled to anything, really. I'm sure when we see it, it'll be awesome. It'll be great. But as of right now, we're just in sort of a strange little limbo period, and that's nothing disparaging towards what we're seeing. It's just a time to play the patience game.
We're going to finish up this Harloff and Ellis conversation. Jay had a great idea. Another thing that the Schmoes don't seem to be doing anymore is checking the comment section. So Jay's idea, let's just inform Mark and Christian as to what's going on in the comment section, since they seem to be ignoring YouTube in general because, for the most part, the chat on YouTube is trash. So we'd like
Successful.
we'd like to take the time to let Mark and Christian in on what some of the people are saying on this episode of the Harloff and Ellis show.
Well, more than anything, we're going to take a load off their back. So
Right.
we're going to help you guys out. We're going to go ahead and just answer some of these comments for you. Reply to them.
Yeah. Baba Yaga says he puts the timestamp of 10 seconds in, and he says 10 is when it actually starts. You're welcome.
Interesting. This is an interesting comment. Obviously, from a very dedicated and fantastic fan. It's only a very short time before you're banned from the channel. Congratulations.
Geek Chorus. So Harloff doesn't like politics and Star Wars, but he loved the ultra political episode 8. I guess as long as he agrees with the political views, it's awesome.
Listen, man. Christian, he works really hard. He's got some kids. He cooks chicken by the highway. He'll talk about whatever the hell he wants. He doesn't have time. He doesn't have time to go back and check in on what opinions and what takes he's given in the past. He's just doing a show, all right? He's rocking some dope Vans. Just relax, guy, okay? On to the next one.
Mark and Christian, I hope you're listening to this. Notorious VC wants you to know that the only Black Panther review that matters is Red Letter Media's.
I don't even watch anything from that channel. Next question.
Damn, barely views on this show. You viewers are sleeping on the show. Jesus Sanchez says.
I agree. This has been the show that they've clearly always wanted to do. Obviously inspired by Sight and Sound. It makes sense why the content would be so rich that people would need to watch it. This is a show that's on the rise. Be on the lookout.
Kenny Ritchie writes, about 2 minutes discussing Han Solo, the rest about nothing. The most unfunniest Seinfeld episode ever. The most unfunniest.
There's a bunch of other movie channels out there. Why don't you go hang out on those? We'll see you next time.
Charlie White. Oh, Christian. Charlie has a point here. You can definitely see the wire, Harloff. To the headphones. The wire, the cord there.
Sometimes people wear headphones. Sometimes they don't. It's not a big deal. It's just a thing. Move on.
And the last one is from Eloy Reyes. He says, I love when Christian mentions After Schmo. That show was awesome.
I agree. But you're banned for no other reason other than just because I'm feeling antsy. See you later.
Hold on. No, we like Eloy. I like Eloy. He can stick around. Please, forgive him.
Eloy. Make sure to check out Sight and Sound. Just broke 1,000 followers.
Subscribers on YouTube.
Followers, subscribers, whatever.
The last thing I'll say, real quick, and then we'll talk about the Wangers. Christian and Mark were promoting SK Plus at the end, as per usual. And they talked about having a cute little, nice little network going on. And then Christian said, oh, more on that later. And it got me thinking about the fact that we've pitched on this show that Christian start his own podcast network, similar to what Bill Simmons is doing on The Ringer. And I'm wondering if this is that type of announcement that he's holding out on. Because I'd be remiss if I didn't say, if Harloff isn't paying attention to Sight and Sound, Jay, he's missing out. Am I right or am I right?
I don't know what you mean. Of course he knows what Sight and Sound is.
I didn't say he didn't know what it was. I said paying attention, like what we're doing.
Oh, yeah. The thing that you're suggesting already exists over on our channel. Is that where you're getting to? Okay. Yeah. Listen, Sight and Sound's pretty cool. You should check it out. But no, I think SK Plus is something to behold. I think it's amazing. The fact that it runs the way that it does. I think it needs some diversification. I think that we're about to talk, and what I mean by that is content-wise. I think there's a lot of, and I get it, a lot of people are there for movie shows, or I'm sorry, a lot of the audience there are movie fans, so I get it. And there's a lot of really, really good movie shows on there, but that's one of the reasons why I've sort of fallen in love with the Wangers lately, because I love the concept of a show about nothing. I've always loved that. And the fact that they have this newfound buzz and fire because of what they've discovered on Patreon, that people really do care about what they're doing, is very, very exciting. That's why I love a show like The Meaning Of, because it's a show that exists that in this movie space that I think I'm looking for, and I'm excited for them to do more with it. They sort of got back to their bread and butter this week. But I'm also excited to see new stuff on SK Plus. I'm excited to see new stuff that's not movie shows on SK Plus. That's nothing against the great shows that are on there. It's just I want to see what else can live on SK Plus.
Yeah, and
that
mainly
people would respond to.
And mainly we just need JTE movie things off of After Smoke Fridays.
Yeah, get out of here.
All right, so let's talk about the Wanger Show. The Wanger Show, number 48, which is coincidentally the number of... we got a ton of emails about this, okay? Relax. I know I messed up the thumbnail last week. If you look on SK Plus right now, there are 2 consecutive episode number 46s of After Smoke. I fixed it. This one says 48.
Hashtag transparency. Typically, I do the thumbnails, but you did this one.
Yes. I had already admitted that. Thank you, Jay, for making sure that the people know that.
I just wanted to make sure it was understood.
Yes. But we're back on the number 48 here on After Smoke, and so is the Wanger Show. So we're going to recap the Wanger Show in the way that we typically would the Schmoes No Life show here. And I'm actually really excited. I wanted to do this for several reasons. For one, I actually listened this week. The second is because I'm excited for them in general because of, like you said, the fact that they started this Patreon. And Cody even talked about it in this episode. He talked about the fact that having this Patreon and the idea of accepting anyone's money for content, it holds him accountable. And it sort of drives him to do everything he can for his supporters. And I hope that Cobster and Cody and Beardo understand that they have a lot of people that have always supported them. I hope that they feel that way. I hope that they are just. I hope they found this newfound drive, or maybe they have some kind of off air. Maybe they had some kind of off air conversation as to what they want to do. Like maybe they have this 5-year plan for the Wanger Show, and maybe they want to make it a thing like outside of what the Schmoes Know brand is. And that's another reason why I think you and I relate to the Wanger Show. Going back to your point that you made about Doug Benson and how this guy operates outside of the movie fandom bubble, whoever, I guess Cobster and Cody came up with the Wanger Show originally, when they came up with it, I'm sure that had to be part of the conversation. It's like, not only are they not going to try to exist or operate in the same way that so many people do in this movie space, but they very rarely address their lives working for Schmoes Though and Collider. Like, naturally, they get brought up because it's their job. So they bring it up in a way that anyone would talk about their job, and it just so happens that they're talking about a movie review YouTube channel. But they don't spend a whole lot of time on it. They talk about N64. They talk about Pokemon. They talk about Dragon Ball Z. I mean, it could be a number of things, and they don't try to be like any of the other shows that operate on SK Plus. They just do their thing. Like you said, it's a show about nothing. And I respect that, and I think we just, naturally relate to what they're doing more than we relate to a lot of what other people are doing, because we've had conversations. We don't know what Beardo's intentions are, well, with anything really, but we don't know what his intentions are with Don't Be a Beardo. Like, we don't know what his goals are with that. Maybe he has goals outside of podcasting in general, but right here I see what they're doing with the Wanger Show. I see us in them, or vice versa, however you want to say that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I always look at with this show is the fact that they have a day job. Yes, it's kind of meta because their day job is something that we follow and we do a show about, but we also have day jobs. And this thing that they do outside of their day job, they have this fire, this newfound passion for. They want to see it grow. They even addressed it in this episode, which was fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating. The fact that, oh, maybe this thing could get so big that it could be our thing and we could grow it to this, maybe that one day they could quit their job at Collider to just do the Wangers, which is fascinating because I think we think, oh, this thing that they've made it, right? For some people, this working at Collider is an end goal. It's something to strive to be involved in this space, but they want to do. This isn't disparaging towards Collider, obviously, but if they can run their own thing, their own brand, it's something that they're working towards, and that's what we're trying to do with Sight and Sound. So that's where I can relate to them in that regard. The other thing I can relate to them with, sort of, and I don't even know if they're necessarily aware of it, but it was made aware to me with Sight and Sound here recently, was that somebody commented on something that we were doing and said that watching you grow and being a part of your growth is half the fun of being involved with all of this. And I think that's what so many people sort of latch onto. Like it's a small community right now. It's a very personal community. It's a little family, and people they feel like they're a part of it. They feel like they're a part of something. I've heard it time and time again that the small community that we have around After Schmo and Sight and Sound, people say it feels like old school small Schmoville, and I get it, man. I get it. It's fun to be a part of something that's niche, that feels small, that you can kind of put in your back pocket.
I also wanted to talk about their Patreon because and this isn't a slight to the Schmodown. It's not a slight to Christian and Mark at all. But I contribute to the Wanger Patreon, and like I said, I see us and them and vice versa. So I wanted to be there for them because I really like what those guys are doing over there. And I didn't think anybody else was going to talk about the Wanger Show Patreon. I think it just kind of they did it a couple weeks earlier than the Schmodown Patreon, but I didn't want it to get completely bulldozed either. So I just wanted to make sure that we were talking about that because they've already put out like a ton of commentaries and a ton of videos for it already. So I just want to make sure if you're a listener of After Schmo that you go check out the Wangers on Patreon and see if it's something that you can contribute to, because they're busting their asses.
Absolutely. So the Patreon is the catalyst, right? It's the catalyst for a lot of this newfound energy that they've got in the show. I mean, it used to be, and we'll just lay it out for people, it used to be the Wanger Show was something that they kind of just did, and sometimes they'd miss a week and this and that for this reason or that reason, and we'll talk about it more when we get into the show, but they feel like they owe it to these people now, and rightfully so, because they do. But that's what's sort of exciting to see. Just to comment on the Patreon specifically, I'm a huge fan of not only does contributing to the Patreon help make the existing content better, but it's also in between that, between now and the future when it can grow and evolve, we're going to just give you more stuff. You obviously like what we do. Here's just more stuff already. Even not only is it more stuff, but it's stuff that doesn't currently exist in the Wanger Show format as it is. Does that sort of make sense right there?
Yeah, it does.
So the other thing that's fascinating about this, and just to sort of compare and contrast Schmodown Patreon and Wanger's Patreon, you have Schmodown Patreon, which is great. It's fantastic. It's huge scale, right? I mean, I think if you calculated the $10 tier across, at least the other day when I checked it, the $10 tier amongst everybody that had subscribed, they're already making close to $70,000 a month, which is ridiculous, right? That's so fucking huge. And that's cool. And everybody that's contributed, I'm sure they feel like they're a part of it and they're getting some great things. But with Wanger Show, when you're contributing to the Patreon, your money is going, even a little bit of money, even $1 a month, even $5 a month is going a lot farther. Does that make sense? It's going a lot farther with these people because it doesn't just feel like you're throwing a stone in an ocean. It feels like you're throwing a stone in a small cup of water. It's just like
bathtub. Okay, yeah, you got small.
Yeah, so it just feels like your money is going even further. We see the energy that this small amount of people, and I'm sure it feels massive to them, but the small amount of people contributing to the show, we've seen the energy that it can provide to them. It means that they're doing the show with this newfound energy every single week. Like, imagine how better it's going to be the more it grows. And I think that's super, super, super exciting to pay attention to.
Don't give it to the schmodown. Stick it to the
Yeah,
man.
I'm not saying that. Yeah.
Stick it to the man. Give it to the Wangers.
Yeah, real quick, but just because.
There's another text, by the way.
Let's just talk about Patreon in general for a second, comparing and contrasting these things.
Really?
I don't think necessarily everybody, well, I definitely don't think everybody has this perspective, but I hope there's people out there that don't feel like they have to do one or the other, or they have to.
Yeah, I said that last week.
Again, you're not paying for content. You're just paying for more content if you choose to. And I know we addressed that last week, but go ahead.
Let's talk about Copster and Cody bringing that up. I mean, they sort of responded to the fan backlash, and Copster brought up a conversation that we were having on Twitter. I love how he described it. Snelling was having a tirade, even though I responded to the guy just like he did. Cody mentioned something. He doesn't like the free content commentary, and in no way, shape, or form did Cody make it seem like he was attacking us. But that is something that we mentioned. That was part of our argument last week. So I just kind of wanted to talk about why do you think he takes issue with that? Because, I mean, I do think it's part of the argument. I don't think it's the only argument to make, but it sort of supports my point in that people should examine and try to find a different approach when it comes to being a devoted fan of something like a YouTube channel compared to a movie franchise, if you will. I mean, that there is some validity to that. But I'm curious how you interpreted his comments, and why do you think he thinks the way that he does?
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, to each their own, and obviously he just has a difference of opinion, which is totally fine. It's completely welcomed. I do disagree with it to a certain extent, but I think there's more to unpack than just the simple black and white statement of it's free content, get over it, or it's free content and you shouldn't use that sort of verbiage. I think from a certain perspective, and just to sort of assume his sort of stance, is it does come across as a little dismissive, and it's something that can easily be abused and easily be thrown out if you're just saying this person isn't liking what we're doing and they're being critical, but it's free content, get over it. I get that 100%, but I think if we're unpacking it a little bit and we're diving deeper on why sometimes that verbiage is being used and why we sort of presented that argument, is because there's a huge difference between a fan, because he threw out the idea of sort of like, what's the word I want to use here? Like customer service, that sort of mentality. There's a huge difference between a good customer and a bad customer. I think that's a fair point. You have the type of person that maybe throws out constructive criticism or gives things on how they think the show can be better. And if I were to just use the phrase, it's free content, just deal with it, that's a negative sort of stance, right? That's dismissive. That's being a bad content creator.
And that's why we had a much loaded argument last week.
Yes.
Because that's not the only way to approach it. But I was just a little intrigued by what he was saying, because he had also said that he holds a lot more weight on his content now that it is being supported, now that Wangers is being monetized in some way. So he did feel a greater obligation. So that's why I wanted to explore that and to sort of expand on that idea a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. I think, well, just to sort of put a cap on the other part of that argument, the other fan is the one that's just completely shitty and it's just like going off the deep end. Then if it were me and if it were my content, I totally get it. I totally get where you would have to be a little bit more attentive to what your community is saying. But I mean, I don't think you can completely bend the knee to every single thing that your audience is demanding of you just because they are supporting you monetarily. At a certain point, you have to just have full faith in what it is that you're putting out.
Yeah.
And I think you do have to sort of make a statement. Listen, you're choosing to support this financially. No one's putting a gun to your head. If you're not on board with the things that we are doing, then you can just no longer support us. Like that statement can be made. I'm not saying in all instances. Of course, there are instances, again, if people are giving criticism and you're looking at it objectively, yeah, maybe we could change this here. Maybe we could tweak some things here and there. Perfectly fine. I just think there needs to be some, and I'm not saying that he wasn't open to it, but I do think there should be some openness to all sides of it. You have to look at things logically and objectively.
Something that I thought was super mature from Cobster. He mentioned how he had that he's had it.
I thought you were going to say Beardo.
Something that Cobster said that I thought was really mature. And I think I know where he got this from because this is where I got it from. He mentioned how he's had a couple of interactions online where people have sort of lashed out at him and come to find out that maybe they were just in a bad mood or they had a bad day and they apologized and they didn't mean to take it out on Cobster or the Wangers or whatever it may be. I thought back to one time when Ellis was sort of talking about how he handles people online, and he threw it out there. He's like, look, I'm not always going to take someone's anger so seriously online, and I'm not going to argue with them or lash out at them, back at them, because they might just be having a bad day and I don't know what's going on in their life. So maybe they, for whatever reason, might need to lash out at me, and I'll just let them do it. I don't have to respond every time. And that's something that I've always liked from Ellis, and I liked Cobster having that take because I don't know if I'm that strong. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have that DNA in me, but I certainly appreciated it. It reminded me of the time that Cobster drunk texted me. And sorry if I just betrayed your trust, but it happened.
Well, I can appreciate the sentiment too, because I actually remember when I was lashed out upon by Christian for my Schmodown reaction, and he probably just needed to think about what was going on in my own life. No, I'm just kidding. But but no, for real, that did happen. He definitely lashed out at me. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I haven't said this on air, and I think I'm going to bring it up on Sight and Sound as well.
Oh no!
You joke a lot, or maybe it's not a joke, that 2018 is the year of the snow.
It's not a joke. It's a fact.
For me, 2018 is. And I want everybody to consider this. Like, I really, really do, because it's actually helped me out a lot so far this year. 2018 for me is the year of just giving people the benefit of the doubt, just like telling me to just pump the brakes on things and be like, it's just a thing. You know, like have that mentality a little.
Well, to be fair, you were always doing that, Jay.
I know.
You've always been
but even
saying that things are things.
But even more so, like I'm just giving people some room, just let them do their thing. Let the kids play, you know, and it's just
give them some room.
It's helped me out a little bit. It's given me a little bit more, even more so. I've been more relaxed about things. I've been a little bit more low key about things. At this point, if I could be any more low key, I might just die. Like I might just be like, yeah. It wouldn't make for good podcast content. So.
You turn out like your grandmother.
Just dead.
I love how before you listened to the Wanger show before I did, and you sent me a text and you gave me the heads up. Yeah, they're sort of addressing what we talked about last week, and I said, oh, that's good. And you threw out the comment, and I love this. I had to write it down in my notes. Beardo was being Beardo. And I read it, and I was thinking to myself, Beardo was being Beardo. That somehow tells me absolutely nothing, but at the same time tells me everything when it comes to how he approached that conversation. And I loved that so much. So thank you.
I think when Beardo is actually on on your side, quote unquote, when he's like involved in listen, when he came on this show, he literally had no idea what he was coming on to. Like he didn't know. He didn't know what he was really getting into. And I think it made for a very interesting show. But when he's a part of the Schmoes Know live show, when he's a part of the Wanger show, he's actually really great to have at the table because he can sort of play audience member because he's constantly like saying things like, oh no, elaborate on what you're saying, or no, you're not giving me enough information. What do you mean by this? Or I'll play devil's advocate. And it actually makes for great content, I think. I don't know if he realizes that he's doing it or not, but he's sort of just making I think sometimes we're guilty of just saying things and talking about things and not realizing that certain people don't have the perspective, which is fine because I don't want to treat our audience like they're dumb, but I'm sure it can be isolating to some people. But Beardo sort of is he solves that problem. So I appreciate him, whether he knows it or not.
I love when Beardo loves things because he seems like such a downer all the time. And so I love when he chirps up and is like, oh, I love that movie. It just always kind of makes me laugh. This sudden jolt of enthusiasm from Beardo. It's hilarious.
Every time I find out that Beardo is passionate about something or finds enjoyment from something specifically, I feel like I'm learning about it for the first time every time.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have loved, they brought up the retirement of the Don't Be a Beardo show. I would have loved if Beardo left after Schmo with like this newfound enthusiasm and like, Don't Be a Beardo is back with all your favorite guests. And he just kind of confirmed it's gone. And so we didn't light that fire. But I guess the last thing I want to discuss, and then we'll head out of here, this reminded me of so many interactions that you and I have had with other people. Did Copster just now explain to his parents what the Wanger show was? That's what he made it sound like. Like, at first he brought it up like he was describing what Patreon was, right? But then the more and more he talked about it, he acted like it was the first time he had told them about anything he had done with his life over the past couple years. How did you take that?
I think it just sort of speaks to, again, what this sort of Patreon infusion has done for them. It's made them want to focus on things a little bit more. You know, they're talking about writing more screenplays and short films and this and that, these pitch videos, and they're wanting to get people more involved with it even more so, whereas before it might have just been this thing that they did on the weekends. It was just a thing for a little bit. Now it's really a thing. It's really just a thing.
Okay. I'm going to get off here. I'm going to have to call my mom and update her on technology. Jaye Williams, where can the people find you online?
Actually, wait, before we do this, I want to run back on something on Ellis and Harloff. Sorry. I'm going to hit the rewind button.
Oh, no.
I need to address something.
Okay.
They were talking about doing steroids on the show.
Yeah.
And I just want to let people know that there are PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs, or at least things that would be considered performance-enhancing drugs, that aren't necessarily a bad thing, that can still help you out physically. And as I'm 30 now, I mean, testosterone replacement therapy is a significant thing. In fact, every male should think about this. No, I'm concerned. I'm concerned for Mark and Christian. They're getting older. They should consider getting their testosterone levels checked. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jaye Williams, J to the A, the Y to the E. It's the same for both. I'm also breaking down music every single Friday on what some call the movie talk for music. It's called Sight and Sound Music. It's sometimes it's on video, sometimes it's not. We're doing some other things on YouTube. We just broke 1,000 subscribers, and that's awesome. That's really cool. Come hang out with us. Where can they find you?
Christian and Mark, just remember, it's all about the blood. Like, think about it. Just get some younger blood pumped into you. I don't know how that works. I don't know if it's standard procedure, but that will make all the difference in sustaining your livelihood. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. Just look it up. The science is there. You're right. Sight and Sound is doing great on YouTube. We're really excited. We're also happy about the podcast. We're pretty much putting out a show like almost every day now. It's absolutely insane how much content we're putting out for free. Check out my movie show. I just did an episode. We sort of examined, actually JTE was sort of the crutch of, of the content this week because I got to observe a lot of the interactions on Twitter post Black Panther premiere. And yeah, I had a guest on, Christina Farrow, who's a fellow Schmovillian, fellow Wanger supporter and Schmoes supporter. She came on and sort of helped me talk about that conversation because I certainly could not do it on my own because I'm just a white guy. Thanks so much, guys, and we will see you next week on after whatever the show ends up being called. Thank you.